It's my great honor to welcome you to this book launch and exhibition opening, Vienna AI, Studio Hani Rashid. My name is Alexander Damianisch. I'm head of the Zentrum Fokus Forschung, and really I mean it really dearly from my heart. It's a great pleasure for us to have this exhibition here that has been built in the last days and set up. You will see later. We've participated in developing it in the last months, weeks and days, and now it's there. And I think it's much more than these times that have been put into this. It's also a book that will be presented today, and I want to welcome also here on the stage Gerald, Bast, Rector of the University of Applied Arts, and Hani Rashid, Professor of the Department at the Department of the Institute of Architecture, and that's about it. And now I give the mic to Gerald Bast.
Thank you. So, turn it on. Da gibt es auf dem Mikrofon einen Schalter. Habt ihr Mikro?
Very sensitive mic. Well, dear friends, students, teachers, and of course, dear Hani, it's a pleasure to see you all in this wonderful environment on this wonderful evening for a special event. Not only the exhibition, one more fantastic exhibition of great works, but also the launch of one more book. And these books represent in a way how it is possible. It is on paper, it is a lot of comments in, and you can feel what is behind the images, what is behind the texts. And behind all this is a lot of inspiration and a lot of energy, and also a lot of power. And I just read the text here about the exhibition, and I saw the phrase radical architecture. In our days, unfortunately, the word radical became a little bit strange or suspicious, and this is a pity, because the university is and has to be a place for radicality in ideas. We must not stay in the area of pragmatism and boring realities. This is what we have to do, to think about the future, and the future is not a mere continuation of the present. We have sometimes in our ideas to break the present, to get a glimpse of what could be in the future, not the next year, not 5 years from now, but maybe 10, 20 years. Although time is running quicker and quicker, not only for people in the age where I am. Time and the development of our technology, of our lives, is running quicker and quicker, and we have to struggle to follow this development. And those who are struggling hard are Hani and his team of teachers and the students. And what I saw in the last years, from year to year, and what I can see in this book now and in the exhibition, is to be bound on trying to find the glimpse of the future. And for this I thank you, Hani, and your team. And for that I also thank the students. You have wonderful students, you have a great team, and Yes, you did a great work. I say that also, you said, in your words, you will say the total opposite. Well, I said you won't do that. I really mean it. You did a wonderful work at the university for the future generation of architects, and what you gave them is the inspiration and being sure that architecture has the power to shape the future beyond the images, beyond the surfaces, beyond binding to kind of aestheticism, contributing to these sometimes frightening, sometimes fantastic prospects of the new opportunities. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I remember 12 years ago sitting in your office and you looked at me quizzically and said, "So you want to teach here?" And I said, "If you let me." So thank you for that, Gerald. Thank you for bringing me on board. Yeah, it's we have two openings tonight. They're related, of course, but I'll talk first about probably the book. Let's start with the book behind me. You know, it's interesting. I guess I've been doing this for a while. It doesn't feel like it, but I guess so, according to certain bureaucratic rules. You know. And can you hear me?
Yes.
This better? Hello? Yes. Do you want to sing something? Okay. So now the entire neighborhood can hear me. And I'm competing with that bird, which is actually AI generated. So I've been, between all of the different teaching jobs I had, and of course the last 10, 12 years here, the one thing I've come to learn about schools of architecture and learning and thinking and radical work and experimental work is that a university, needs to have a good faculty, needs to have good facilities, needs to have sort of, all of those sort of normal things. But the most important thing, and I'm not just saying this because you're all standing in front of me, are the students. Students are what make schools and make being a teacher such a pleasure and such a fantastic occurrence. Working with you guys on this, working with the previous students I've had, many of whom are here, has for me been an absolute delight. And the delight really in teaching is the provocation students make you sort of think about. Students are, as I hope I was as a student, are generally smarter than their teachers. They are pushing the envelope. They are the ones who are in the trenches, doing the work, the thinking, the research. And for us as teachers, it's important to actually enter into a dialogue, to question our own beliefs, and to get great things out of students by virtue of that dialogue. And that's been, for me, an unbelievable pleasure. Not that I'm stopping teaching, because I'm sure someone wants to take me, but we'll see. But it's really part of teaching. It's a fantastic symbiotic relationship between knowledge that I have or have acquired and knowledge that students are acquiring on the fly. And that produces some really amazing things. So, with that in mind, the two books behind me that we've produced over the last 10 years, 12 years, are a testament to that. They're a testament to the students' passion for research, to taking risks, to experimenting in places sometimes that are unorthodox, to discovery. And if you're not discovering, and if you're not pushing the envelope as a student, it's that incredible moment in your time, in your lives, where you're able to do that free of all kinds of other constraints that come to you as you get older and practice and form, whatever it is you do. So that's really important to sort of outline. As far as the book goes, there's a whole list of people who are really important to the book. But of course, my teaching assistants, Sophie Grell, Sophie Luger, Pete, I don't know, he's all out here somewhere. Jose, who I don't believe is here, and Lenia, who's been with us until she defected to the dark side. Have been absolutely instrumental in all of this work. Also, other assistants I had along the way. And, you know, I owe you guys an amazing thanks for everything. I'm not going to get emotional here, but it's been an amazing time with you guys as the submarine that we were and have been working on. It's been remarkable. Claudia Rustenschacherallee, there you are, Claudia, is an unbelievable anchor who has also held us all together through the thick and thin, and continues to. And then in the book itself, you'll find the writings of Anab Jain, who is the industrial design professor at the school. Sophie Luger wrote a text. Greg Lynn, who I don't believe is here, but Greg contributed to the book. Lenia contributed to the book. Timothy Morton writes a very provocative essay in the book that you may want to look at, and Claudia Pescaro also contributed. I want to also just thank quickly, I don't know if they're here, Catherine Holas on the publishing side, Rose Wita, who is amazing. We adore you. And Berghauser, Alan Brown, Scott Clifford, I feel like I'm at the Academy Awards here. Scott Clifford Evans, and from Bleed, the designer of the book, Mark Dam and Astrid Feldman, who did a remarkable job. So the book is here, it's behind me, it's worth looking at if you haven't seen it. If you're in it, congratulations. The students are the ones who deserve the most thanks for those books. They've done remarkable work, and it's a great kind of record, let's say, of the research, which leads me to the second part of this event, which is this exhibition that we're opening tonight. The one thing that's been amazing, or at least for me, has been so important in being on the professorial side of the equation, is the idea of poking the bear, let's say, right? Putting a provocative project out into the open, into the wild, working with students who want to or who embrace that provocation or those questions, and then go to work on producing truly remarkable things and discoveries. And I'm not saying this from a point of view of ego at all, in fact, but in all of my teaching since I started at Columbia University at 26, I have always been looking to produce polemics and stories and narratives that are looking into the future. And it's funny, now that I can look back on many of the studios that I taught, some things come to fruition, some things don't. But what's interesting is the work is always ahead of itself. It's always problematic for that reason. It's always a bit raw, a bit embryonic. It's difficult to digest at first, but the work kind of finds its way situating slowly into the mainstream, because the work, again, from the student's point of view, is about peering into the future and peering into the possibilities we have as architects for designing projects. This is no different. This is a project that probably today looks a little raw, is experimental, it's rough on the edges, but it's delving into a territory which each day now, exponentially growing, is becoming more and more of a topic of interest across the board throughout humanity, and that's artificial intelligence. And when we started on the AI, this project, I was kind of hesitant to write this brief with, did you work on this brief with me? No. I was a little hesitant because I thought, you know, maybe it's going to sound a little bit fashionable, maybe it's a little bit of chasing something that's fleeting and so on, but we took the risk and we dove in. And since we started the studio, the exponential changes to what AI is bringing to society have been absolutely frightening. Not just interesting, but frightening. There are so many changes taking place on so many fronts, and this is way outside of our realm as architects, that it's just becoming an unbelievably compelling topic. So to see young architects attack AI, and I mean that by attack, a lot of you struggled and fought with the AI as if it's a thing, and to enter into an incredible dialogue with artificial intelligence as an enabling tool, not as a kind of panacea or a kind of solution, but rather as something which provokes, was really what was most fascinating about this work. What you see in the studio and in the exhibition are the students. Each of the students' groups or individuals sort of provoking a question, having the AI enter into a dialogue, whether it's generative AI in terms of imaging, whether it's text-based AI in terms of producing all kinds of studies, whether it's AI to study actual rhythms of nature, light penetration, automotive patterns, whatever it might be. And by asking those questions, getting a plethora, a crazy kind of surge, a tsunami of things back at them. And so what happened in this studio, what I've seen, again, is from a kind of interesting to watch, is that the dialogue the students had with the AI generative engines and generative tools actually puts them in a position of having to think a lot more clearly and a lot more focused, and to know history, and to bring back certain kinds of tenets and certain kinds of staples, that all of a sudden they're back in dialogue. Because when you sketch on an AI sketch, you're in an entirely different place. When you build a model on an AI generative model, you're in another realm. How do you bring that to physicality? How do you bring that to reality? And what kind of questions does it ask? So the exhibition is actually kind of extraordinary in that way. Again, it's extremely problematic, it's difficult, it's full of information, and it's full of problematic solutions. But it is really an exhibition about the possibilities and the criteria by which we have to create now, in a very astute way, our understanding of how to use these tools. Because if we don't do that, the tools will overrun whatever it is we think we're doing. The tools are already capable of doing so many things that we do as architects that we used to think was important, and they're now no longer that important. I won't mention them all, but there's a lot of sort of standard, what these and I call busy work in the office, that is now taken up with AI tools that can do the busy work. So that's a big part of this exhibition. The exhibition focuses on Vienna. It focuses on the future of Spitalau. I've had a lot of trouble with that one. And it's really, what you will see in the exhibition is a video-generated, AI-generative, we kind of wanted it real time, I'm not sure how much it is real time, a video-generative set of maps, drawings, three-dimensional models, and studies that are taking place. But being architects, the students went ahead and built physical enactments, physical pieces in dialogue with the AI that have placed them above these kind of video flows. And then have produced, of course, prints and drawings and things that establish their ideas. I was saying earlier to Gerald and to Mr. Dr. Tisla, he must get mixed up with, that AI, in many ways, in my mind now, has become kind of what they call, when you're half asleep, half awake, is a name for the dream state that you're in that kind of moment. And in a way, AI has entered us into that as a kind of global situation. If you look at AI from the point of view of it being a delirious, ever-generative set of dream logics of what's on the internet, you're looking at a kind of river flowing. You're looking at a sort of endless sea. If you wake up in that delirium and you don't snap into reality, you'll get locked up in an asylum, because you can't sort of walk around the world in a dream state, right? There's a kind of a moment when you say, oh wow, that was a dream. Everything was illogical, that was very strange. Well, working with the tool is kind of interesting, because the question is, how do you stop that flow? How do you decide when to wake up? And what is the criteria for waking up from the delirium of an AI tsunami? And that's what I find interesting in this work in general, is that the criteria by which students would say, okay, this is interesting, let's go down this road, let's seize on this idea. Whether it's environmental, whether it's socio-political, whether it's material-based, and some new material ideas, and so on and so forth. So each of these questions come into play. So, I'm not going to talk much more because there's drinks and there's a show, and you've all heard enough from me over the last while. So let me just again list some of the thanks here for the exhibition. First of all, to the Institute of Architecture, Gerald, Bast, and this University of Applied Arts to have this space, to allow us to have this show. Of course, the team again, my teaching assistants, whom I just mentioned. The exhibition team, Louis Wagner, Tilman Fabini, and David Kipp. Nice work. You guys did a brilliant job. It's kind of heading up the rest of the crazies in the studio, which is all the other students, so I won't list all the names, but you will see them. Also, I wanted to thank Dr. Telser. very much for funding the project, for being behind it, and for listening to me also now for another 20 minutes. Thank you, and thank you to the company. Sorry, my German's horrible. Immobilien Privatstum.
Immobilien Privatstum.
Perfect. He said it better than I do. Which is a group that is involved with buildings and housing and the future of cities and the future of this city in particular. So it's of particular interest to Dr. Tislar to talk to him because you'll probably get a job. It's probably a yeah. And so that's basically it. Yeah, I think I mentioned what I'm supposed to. Thanks for coming. Thanks for enjoying this. One last thing I would just say is that when I first started teaching the digital studios at Columbia University last century, I turned to one of my students who had worked very, very feverishly. We had thrown out, we called it the paperless studios. Greg was part of that as well. And we threw out all the paperless, the so-called paperless studios, threw out all the tools, and working only in digital tech for like an entire semester. Students were really into it. We were using Softimage 1.0, Macromedia Pro, things you don't even know existed. And at the end of that, I went up to one of my students, Michael, and I said, Michael, how are you feeling? You know, and he was like, his eyes were bright red. And he looked up at me and he said, huh? And I said, how are you doing? I said, you've been only using a computer for like 3 months solid. He goes, let me tell you, man, after 3 months on the computer, reality is so fucking interesting. So I just think that hasn't changed. This stuff is making reality more interesting. So enjoy the show, and thank you for coming, and thank you very much to the students for the remarkable work you've done, and my assistants. You guys are brilliant.